long-standing members and supporters of ITS Hong Kong, you know that ITS Hong Kong had for many years been organizing regular technical seminars, forums, and visits with the objective of providing a professional forum for members of the ITS industry to share their expertise and experience, bringing benefits to the local and regional development of ITS. Now, similar to our practice in recent years, we are bringing our technical events online as a series of technical webinars to be held on a quarterly basis throughout the year. So our event today will be around an hour with around 45 minutes for a speaker's presentation and around 15 minutes for Q&A. And today we are delighted to feature one of our corporate members, Esme One, and their partner, ComNet by Acre, to speak to us on a topic of generating end user value in ITS solutions. And with us today from ComNet is Mr. Ian Duchars. And Mr. Duchars is Global Strategy Director for ComNet, having served as an engineering apprenticeship with the Ministry of Defense and read for his degree in electronic systems at the Royal Military College of Science. Ian worked on satellite communications projects for the UK government. Following this, he moved to the commercial sector and became involved with optical communications, primarily in the security and surveillance markets. Now, Ian has held senior positions in a number of electronic communication companies and is currently Global Strategy Director for ComNet, where he is involved in both technical and commercial aspects for the company. Now, before we start, may I request all audiences to mute their microphones so that we can minimize any disruptions to presentations. Questions are more than welcome. Please type your questions to the speakers in the chat box. We'll be reading them out to the speakers at the later part of the event for their feedback and discussion. Now I will hand over the floor to Ian for his presentation. So it's up to you, Ian. Thank you.
Hamlin, thank you very much. Listening to the introduction, it's a very generous introduction. I also start to get very concerned when I think of my age now and all those many years ago, being at the military college and studying for degrees, etc. What I hope today is that I can bring some of that experience and knowledge to you over those many years. And give you a relatively high-level discussion, let's say, on what we in ComNet look at end-user value, how we do that through the various systems and solutions that we provide, and the driving factors in there that are focusing us as far as our product roadmap and future solutions are concerned. So let me, if I can get technology working, take you through. I am and I'll apologize up front, I do like a Venn diagram, and as I say, I'll apologize now because there's a few of them, but I'll keep coming back to this Venn diagram as we go through this discussion, because this is how we look at value. There are a number of factors for us as a developer, manufacturer, solution provider that drive value. And I'm going to look at each one of these in isolation. We'll start with cybersecurity and move around the wheel as such in a clockwise fashion. But of course, value as we look at it is different to the various stakeholders within both the supply chain and the user side as well. So to an end user, when we talk about value, what are we looking at? Well, return on investment. Yes, if we can provide that, that is an absolute value to end user. But, compliance, etc. If the systems that we're working in, those need to be up and running, and there could obviously be a legal obligation end user to provide that. But asset protection, lifetime of a system, reduced operating costs, etc. If we can help to provide that, then that is what we see as value. For the integrator and the installer, we look at things slightly different. Obviously, if any integrator installer has a happy end user, then life is good and value is being provided. But I'll look at different areas such as fitness for purpose, deployment, speed of deployment, the improved service, operational efficiencies, and of course, for any integrator installer, how we can drive cost reductions, but very importantly, maintaining a level of quality and service towards that end user. So what I'll look to do is to say, I'll keep coming back to this Venn diagram, but let's start off and look at cybersecurity. I'm sure on your desks and in any discussion, cybersecurity is first and foremost. We live within an IP world, and certainly within our ITS solutions, very much IP based in everything that we do. So within ComNet, we like to look at what we call a holistic approach to cybersecurity. As I said, I'll apologize again for the Venn diagrams, but they're useful. And we like to use a strapline, which is secure by design. But everything that we're looking to do feeds into and comes back to cybersecurity. So again, when we look at our Venn diagram, my background leads me to projects, and I look at projects from the starting point, which is an end user's operational requirements. What is it that they need to do? And at that point, I start to look at and think of cybersecurity issues, problems, how we solve things. Because cybersecurity to me is like quality. It's not added on, it's designed in, and it's from day one. So everything that we do as ComNet, and in fact everyone on this call, relates to cybersecurity, and it's start to finish of a project. So we have to sit and listen, and that's very important for us as a manufacturer. You know, our solutions are only solutions if they meet customers or end users' operational requirements and objectives. That's when it becomes a solution. If it doesn't do that, it's not a solution. So it's very important for us to sit and listen. But as we go around, you know, we take operational requirements, we convert that to a requirement spec, etc., and go through solution, etc. That's where I start to look at fitness for purpose in both those systems and solutions. And then on through installation, you know, system configuration, are we doing things correctly? Then operation, dynamic information being fed back within the system, maintenance of that system, through system upgrades, and then of course that may bring us back to operational requirements. Now I appreciate that's not just a sequential flow. We're always looking at operational requirements. But as long as we as ComNet are thinking about these areas, and potentially we're all thinking about these areas, then I think we're having a good feel for cybersecurity, because at all of these stages, if we don't get it right, the cybersecurity is compromised. So it's very important that we look at all these stages. And again, just touching on this, and I know at the top I mentioned a surveillance system, but you know, this is certainly true to ITS. Again, we as ComNet are very much in our minds points of attack, how people attack a system. And you know, servers, workstations, any IoT device. What I note that's not in there, but I want to make very clear as well, is that we actually look at points of attack more from a physical side. So how do we remove, you know, potential easy physical points of attack within a system? Because of course, any outage on a network is a cybersecurity issue, be that somebody, you know, cutting a cable, disconnecting a connection, etc. And those, I think, are one of the more common ones that we have to address. Then we have the defense mechanisms. You know, how are we going to protect against potential attacks? And we list here, and I won't do you the disservice of reading through all of these, but you know, customer or end user concerns, what is it that they're looking at? And then again, from an installer maintainer side, how do those problems then relate into the installer maintainer? And an end user and an installer or maintainer of a system will certainly look at things differently. So again, I list all of these out here, just basically points that we want to address. Coming back to our sort of value wheel, you know, we put cybersecurity as one of the driving factors within value. But of course, cybersecurity is so overreaching as such that I could change the whole diagram and put it this way, and that cybersecurity wraps around anything. So every time that we're thinking of something, I think the point that I really want to get across here is that we as ComNet, and I'm sure everyone, is always thinking cybersecurity. We've got to look at ways to maintain cyber posture, and we're looking at ways to solve problems or take away easy points of attack. So bringing us back to our value proposition again, we've looked at cybersecurity. Let me now take you to endpoint to server system and what we as ComNet look on that as being. The benefit that we have as ComNet to yourselves and to anybody through the supply chain to end user is that we look at within a system the endpoint connection to the network through to the storage within the server device. And just to explain that, we are a designer, manufacturer, supplier of transmission equipment and then server compute solutions. So from the point at which the IoT device, and in this diagram, let's say the camera device hits the switch, we're operating at that point, and we're looking to secure that point all the way back through to the server storage. Now, of course, this is showing an on-prem solution. If it was a cloud solution, again, really doesn't make any difference to us. Rather than having that server device on site, we're now providing some sort of a router or a gateway to get you off of site and to the cloud location. But of course, be it on-prem or cloud, the whole network is still existing. And we're also quite interested by what is connecting to us. And I'll show you this as we go through. So for us, it's not just a case of something sitting outside the ComNet, let's say Ethernet switch. Yeah, we don't care what that is. We are interested in what that is. And of course, the more we know about it at an electronic level, the more we can make sure that that connection is secure as well. So again, benefit to all is our endpoint to server solutions. With that, what we then have is a broad portfolio. And just to, again, I'm not going to do you the disservice of reading through all of these, but just looking at them group by group, it's just sort of try and give you a feel. We divide our sort of setup into Ethernet switches, media converters, network extenders. I'll talk purpose-built servers and then hybrid server switches and accessories. And then you can see at the bottom this sort of sad sitting on its own section of software, but of course is a rather significant section. Across these portfolios, but if I can look at Ethernet switches, media converters, and network extenders, our focus is into the industrial world, as in temperature hardened. So we are focusing across a -40 +75. I would classify that as American mil spec, but that's where we sit. And obviously, when we look in the worlds of NEMA and DOT approvals, that's where we operate across, and that's what gives us the approvals, etc., to work in, let's say, the ITS areas. There is sections within there, and you'll see where we physically state commercial grade. We have had over the years customers requesting that we provide commercial grade solutions because they want to complete the solution with ComNet. It's never really a part of the business that we wanted to get into, in all honesty, but we did. So from a transmission point of view, we focus across a number of areas. Ethernet, of course, yes, fundamental part of our business today. But if we just look at network extenders, you'll see that as we come under the two Ethernet entries at the top, we're then into a world of video, RS data, and contact closure. And I'm going back to the good old days of security surveillance systems and ITS systems when analog video was still in fashion. We still see a lot of analog video today, and so we keep those solutions going. And so if you wish to put analog video through fiber with other signals such as RS data and contact closure, we have all of those solutions available. We also have standalone solutions for RS data and contact closure, and we see that extensively. And in fact, within RS data, we add in weekend there from access control side over fiber as well. And that is still a significant part of our business. And in fact, the contact closure arena, we see that growing, and we get involved today in such areas as, let's say, electric vehicle charging points, where contact closure is maybe used for some sort of safety cutout or panic switch. And again, it's what we see as a growing market. But of course, contact closure feeds into every marketplace. And I think it's, as I go through, I'll mention this, it's mixing signals as well. A contact closure with an Ethernet signal, that's where we start to provide solutions that may be slightly different. Our server and server switch solutions, servers, various storage capacities in there, and then things like hybrid servers are where we take an Ethernet switch and a server and put the two within the same box. So you've got switch, server, and storage all sitting in the same device. So that's really just to give a feel of the breadth of solutions that we have and that we need to have, because in what we look at, no two systems, and as a result, no two solutions are the same. So let's keep going round our wheel. We've got the value from the cybersecurity. We've looked at endpoint to server systems. Now let's look at fitness for purpose. Fitness for purpose, I'll put up this slide by way of explanation, but I'll also add this in. My colleagues in America look at me with strained expressions when I mention fitness for purpose. Fit for purpose was a statement that was introduced to me many years ago, probably from my UK Ministry of Defence days. But it really was, I'll say at that time, it was a military statement. Anything that was used had to be fit for purpose. But that certainly goes way beyond military today, and I certainly see that as an absolute requirement in the world that we operate in, where, let's be honest, failure should not be an option, and fit for purpose is an essential thing. So if I just sort of try and generally look at fitness for purpose, and if I take you to below the various badges at the top, as you can see, that's me with a marketing hat on, and the badges at the top who use ComNet solutions. But let's drop below. Specification of a product is very, very important. Now, as consultants and onto integrators, that's probably where that has more importance. I think it may be of less importance to the end user. The end user is looking again for that solution that meets those operational requirements. But specification is critical. We have to get the specification right. And importantly, the solution has to meet or exceed that specification. And I've seen over the years lots of things written in data sheets, which, let's be honest, are, let's say, stretching the imagination a little bit. So that specification is critically important. And it's important that the product does what it says on the tin. It can meet the specification that it states it does. So hence the operation and temperature. Right. Does it work at -40? Does it work at +75? Does it still work across the stated lifetime? And it has to, if that's what it states. But there, I think, is where reputation also comes in. If you're known to have been doing it for X number of years in the marketplace and in some of the toughest environmental conditions, that's good. We are a USA-based company. We are predominantly made in the USA, and that carries benefits as well. I'm sitting here in the UK, so made in the UK, made in the USA maybe doesn't carry as many benefits for me as if I was sitting in the US, but I still think around the world, it's all to do with quality and again, meeting that specification. And we as ComNet will wrap our belief in the product around a lifetime warranty on our industrial hardened products. So that's us basically sitting there saying, hey, look, we don't just say these things, we do these things. And here's our backing. And again, I come to cybersecurity. It's all right talking about it, but your products need to be able to meet what it is that you say you're going to do. And I think in cybersecurity, if we are enhancing the cyber posture at any location, that's a major fit for purpose statement. And then finally, within that world, support. And I look at support, of course, all the way through a project. But quickly here, we're looking at pre-support. I would want to give the support before any sale and well before any sale, because I'm looking at that value through the chain. And again, the experience of all, but importantly, the end user. And we don't want, as ComNet, the discussion after the sale. I want the discussion before the sale. Let's get things right. Let's understand the specification. Let's go before the specification. Let's understand what the end user's operational requirements are, what it is we're trying to achieve. And then we can look at best how the solution fits to that. So again, when we get to the point of we're on site, the installation is a relatively, and I'll add relatively in there, simple process. So again, these features that look at us being, as ComNet, fit for purpose. Come back again. I'm sure by now you're getting a feel of this Venn diagram. You'll be, I wouldn't say you'll be dreaming about it the end day. You may be having nightmares, but let's look at installed and configured. I throw a couple of images up here. I'm sure you're smiling at these. I grabbed them from various locations. The two in the middle are obviously ComNet products, because just looking at what we have to configure. But it's important that once a solution is chosen, it doesn't matter if that solution is perfectly fit for purpose. If it's not installed and then configured correctly, it's a waste of time, and it opens a huge hole to cybersecurity. We're basically just waving the cyber attack in. So installation is anything, obviously, from the cabling infrastructure through hardware installation, and that's enclosures, and then what goes within enclosures. We have to get that right. And I show two pictures, bottom left. I have an absolute pet hate, and it's something we're addressing, or starting to address now within ComNet, on enclosures, where within an enclosure, we have no idea what's going on. And I look at an enclosure a bit like a safe. So today, if we put valuables in a safe, cash, precious stones, gold. By the way, I'm Scottish, so I don't have a safe, and I don't have that in my safe. I wish I did. But we then add all the protection to that safe. Tamper switches, seismic detectors, various sensors. So as we know, down to fine detail what's going on. If we take a comms enclosure, and okay, not 100%, but certainly up into the 90 percentage points as we look across the world, those enclosures are not monitored or managed in any way. And I show some diagrams here. The second diagram in from the left is a street cabinet where I took a picture of in London. And as you can see, the doors are open. It's open to the elements, but more importantly, it's open to me putting my size 12 UK boot in there and knocking out infrastructure. And again, there's a cyber attack, all because we weren't monitoring and managing that physical location. So again, it's critically important that we put things in place to install correctly and configure correctly. And that isn't just active equipment, that's on the passive equipment side as well. And if we dive in a little bit deeper then here to ComNet in ways in which we do it, this secure by design, we look, let's say, on our server devices to configure for you, hopefully start to take away some problems. And areas that we're looking to do that on would be, let's say something that's relatively simple. We're adding anti-malware protection to the server. And there we use a standard off-the-shelf product called Silence Protect. It's artificial intelligence based, so great at zero-day protection. It doesn't need to go off, search a database and come back and then do checks at that point. And of course, if systems go offline because it's AI based, it's still sitting there learning and protecting. I think though, for us, one of the major features, or the major feature that we bring to you on a server, is the fact that we configure the operating system. So when we look at a Windows operating system, be that Server 2022, Server 2019, Windows 10, we configure that. And when I say that we configure it, we switch off most of the applications that are running within that Windows package. As you all know, Windows has thousands of, I'll say, applications running within there, and the majority of those for the server to do its job are not needed. If those are up and running within Windows, they are attack vectors for the bad guys. So again, just by configuring, shutting down, we do that. Now, that's not a simple job. We write some rather complex script files to do that, and we do that at base. But once we've done it again, then we run our servers through burn-in tests and load them up again with video. So really, by the time our integrators receive a ComNet server, it's really a case of powering up. We've even configured it based on RAID configuration that they want, storage drive size, etc. But again, it's just to show you ways in which we take that away from the integrator. And I think in many cases, this is something that the integrator wouldn't even look at. Configuring operating systems to remove attack vectors, again, as we go forward, is in my mind critical. We're taking away the attack opportunities. And another area that we do as far as configuration is concerned, this is called camera defense, and this sits in our Ethernet switch. Now today, it sits in Ethernet switches that are integral to our servers, so our server switch solution, and then some of our switches that have come from our server business. This is purely to do with history and how we've acquired and added businesses in. But again, camera defense, as you can tell, it sort of points towards cameras, but it could be any IoT device. But this is all about getting an Ethernet switch configured simply and correctly. And we'll do things like, again, this is not complex within an Ethernet switch, but MAC binding, but then MAC spoofing prevention, where we're looking to see what's happening at a port level. Are we detecting any changes in PoE? If we detect a change, does that change stay there for a matter of even seconds? Is that somebody trying to connect in? And then going forward, we have a firewall. Now it's a multi-port firewall, but it's still allowing you to, at a protocol or a traffic type level, shut that port down and simply say, if video is being connected to that port, this is the only traffic I'm allowing through. Now, to do that on a layer 2 Ethernet switch is complex. We allow it very simply through the user interface here within this camera defense pack to be done. And we then do things like IP whitelisting. You set up the range of IP addresses that you will allow through that switch or within that switch. You block the other ones. Internet protection is an interesting one. That is a simple checkbox on/off. And what internet protection would do within that switch is deny the traffic either flowing in, and I'll say in at the front end from the IoT end or in from the network end, to contain any routable IP addresses. And of course, if we look at systems where let's say if the end user may not know, but may have a concern that an IoT device, when it is powered on, may be trying to connect back to an outside network, internet protection blocks that immediately. We would tell you that we've blocked that traffic, but it simply does that. Anything that sits within the routable IP address ranges, we block. And then finally, what we can do is we can tell you about password protection. And what we're looking at there is the data encrypted? If it's not, we can see passwords, and then we'll tell you based on NIST lists. So again, good operational practices if those passwords are good or bad. We also see things down to a video stream level as well. But again, it's a quick, easy way to configure a system. One final bit here when we're just looking at configuration and operation, I throw this in. This is Port Guardian. Port Guardian is a unique feature to ComNet. It's a layer 1 condition, and we can set this up on our managed Ethernet products. And it's a simple, what I would classify as a go, no go. If you connect two active Ethernet devices, you've got a link, an activity LED that will illuminate when the link is made. As activity is going through, that data LED is flashing. We're basically monitoring that circuitry. As soon as that LED was to go, the link is broken. If you have enabled Port Guardian, we shut the port. If Port Guardian is still is not enabled, the port would be up and open. What we'll also do is if power is dropped on that particular device and then brought up, you can also define if you want Port Guardian to activate at that point. So again, it could stop traffic. So it's a very useful go, no go. It's the security feature where I say we act and then we ask the question later. So shut the port, keep the system secure, then go and investigate. So that's what Port Guardian is. So again, something that can be added into the requirements, but it's a very, very basic. And of course, in this world, a lot of times the basic features are the best. And we see that used significantly in various systems around the world. We'll come on then to from configured to managed and monitored. This is our software side. Our software pack we call Monitor, and I'll apologize now because it monitors and it's called Monitor. We think at some point we're going to change. But if I look at monitoring with respect to back to that cybersecurity wheel and just addressing that to a project, from system configuration through operation, dynamic information, maintenance, and system upgrades, our software is involved. And in monitoring, managing, and maintaining, we are pulling in alerts. We're giving you the ability to do tasks back across that network. And the platform is SNMP as well, so we can pick up third-party products at the time. It's as a software pack, it's going to give you 360 degrees security on that system. It's looking at the hardware, so it's looking at any Windows-based device, it's looking at any SNMP-based device. When we do come to look at Windows-based devices, we'll start telling you things, have the Windows updates been done? And you would be amazed when we get to a site, if this software isn't running and we start it running and we look at some servers at a location, which have obviously been in that location for a number of years with the door closed. And you start looking at the Windows updates and some of many critical Windows updates that are not done. So again, as a platform, it's going to give you a lot of information in, things down to sector level on storage drives, etc. And then it allows you to respond to those alerts that are coming in. But again, a driving feature factor for us within strategy is something called complexity through simplicity. I know you'd be sitting there going, marketing, blah. This for me is again one of these sort of features where, let's be honest, how many times have we looked at an error message or an alert and thought, that's great, something's wrong, but I have no idea what that message is telling me. Basic English, basic words, simple, so as they can be understood by an operator. Clear instruction, so again, an operator of a system knows what to do. That's the important thing. And I relate that to, look, when we go to our fridge or freezer and we set the temperature of our fridge or freezer, I'm going to work on the basis that none of us here have degrees in fluid mechanics. That gives me nightmares of my first year of my degree many years ago. But we don't look at the fridge or freezer temperature and think how it's going to work. We set the desired temperature, we put in our requirements, we let the system do what it does. And from a ComNet side, that's what we're looking to do. And again, this complexity, allowing you to set a system up, allowing you to configure a product simply, then giving you clear information, and then allowing you to do respond to that information with simple actions. That's the important thing for us. So something you may hear more from us on complexity through simplicity. That then, once we go from managed and monitored, we're on to proactive maintenance. So again, we've got alerts coming in on a system. We want to react to those alerts. But critical for an end user, we want to respond to pre-fail alerts. So hence proactive maintenance. You know, too many times I see response to an issue where the issue is a failure. That to me is a problem. Let's get our systems analyzed so as we can see pre-fail issues. So again, looking at sector issues on a storage drive, if we see those sector issues, let's send the instruction to replace that drive. And again, clear information as to where that drive is, the location, what that drive number is, etc. So we can respond pre-fail. So we're looking at low-cost fixes versus high-cost failures. Very important, we know what the problem is. As we said there, a drive. So when we use a horrible American terminology, a truck roll, when we send the maintenance guys to the site or to the location, they have the solution in the van. They're not going to analyze and then figure out what the problem is. And of course, if we can do that remotely and perform the repair or maintenance tasks remotely, even better. We're driving efficiencies there. So we're looking with proactive maintenance to be giving continued performance and improved out of hours coverage. And that, I guess, brings me on to the final bit in our Venn diagram or our value wheel is high availability. And for us that may have come from a telecoms or data world into security surveillance, and of course within ITS, we maybe cover different areas there. Some of us will come from a world where high availability is specified, 5 nines available, and that's an absolute requirement within the system. We, of course, may come from backgrounds where failure is not an issue, so high availability is driven constantly. One thing that I see certainly within the surveillance and security marketplace, and I'm going to generalize ITS there, and my apologies for this. I'll wrap it just at the moment into security and surveillance. High availability is not spoken about. It's not specified, certainly in the world that I see. And I think that has to change. So we, as ComNet, are looking to drive high availability within our devices. We don't want to see failures. We don't want to see outages. Now, sure, look, we're not purer than the driven snow. Of course, there's going to be issues. But again, as long as we can see those issues, potentially an issue before a failure, great, we still have availability. If there is something that goes beyond that, the fact that we can repair, replace, whatever has to happen very quickly, that again is driving high availability. And I give you my final Venn diagram here of where high availability is driving other features. And again, very much feeds back into end user value. Because for an end user, I always look at it, they're the ones paying the money. They're the ones who are giving us, the hard-earned cash to put these systems in place. And if these systems are not operational, then that's not a very good return on their investment. So high availability for me is a critical factor. That brings me round to the end of the value wheel. I thought I would give you one more slide, if I may. And again, these presentations, I hope, are not death by PowerPoint, but this is the final one in the deck. But it's just to give you, again, an idea of our roadmap. I've spoken about this value wheel and how everything around there relates to value and what's driving that. And I've said, this is what's ComNet are doing. But let me just give you a high level look at 39,000 feet, if I may, down on our roadmap rationale. So as ComNet, we have hardware, we have firmware, we have software. In the world of hardware, yes, we can do things, and we will do things, such as adding contact closure to Ethernet switches, adding contact closures to media converters, Ethernet media converters. So ways in which we can give a little bit of different functionality on products to meet requirements. But then how can we embed firmware into that hardware that makes life better? And that, again, is looking at areas like our appliance defense, configuring servers, or camera defense, allowing you to configure switches. So we're going to be working more on those areas because that creates a differential. That's a delta. And then, of course, ComNet software. And I look at that as the software, the nice warm blanket that wraps around the hardware. And that's the area where we can monitor, we can manage, we can measure, we can configure, we can maintain, we can upgrade. And all of that, when we put those three areas together, our hardware, our firmware, and our software, gives a ComNet solution that drives value for both the integrator and the end user within the chain. And I hope as well within there for consultants and anybody else who we would be working with. And at that point, I'll say thank you very much. That's been 40 odd minutes of listening. So I thank you very much for your time, and I hope it's been useful. And let's say open it up to questions, I guess, at this point.
Okay, thank you, Ian. So that's very informative. Okay, I see there isn't any questions on the chat box. So anyone have any questions, either type them in the chat box or you can just raise your hands in the Zoom system and we can actually raise it to Ian. So before that, I have a question from myself. First of all, apologies if it's a very silly question because I'm actually
Not
not
at
from
all.
an IT or system engineering background. I have a civil engineering background, so it might be a bit of,
Okay.
low end part. But then, because actually, this institution is more on the intelligent transport systems, right? So it's more
Okay.
transport related. So
Yes.
I see ComNet has very extensive expertise in providing cybersecurity infrastructure and solutions to a wide range of a very sensitive usage. For example, even for defense departments and police security departments and all that, where they would have very high levels of security requirements for themselves, right? But then
Yes.
for transport system related systems, of course. There are quite a few transport systems which would also have some very high level security requirements. For example, those which control major road infrastructure, which would have some safety issues, or maybe, for example, tolling, where you have lots of privacy data flying around within the system. But then there are also a few where which would have less of a security issue or concerns in the system, right?
Yes.
So when we talk to our clients, where they have relatively limited budgets, would there be some sort of like different levels of security protection or sensitivity that I could actually offer to clients of various different, usage. So they could actually have a more appropriate level of resources and costs to budget for their infrastructure.
Okay. Hannah, but great question, and I always look at on the basis there's no daft or crazy questions. The daft question is the one that's not asked. Let me answer that probably two ways. So firstly, anybody who is putting a network in, and as I've mentioned at the start, we live in an IP world, so everything's IP that really we look at today. There are some signals that are not, but the majority is IP. And so that then at a physical level becomes, certainly for us as ComNet, that's Ethernet. And so if you're putting a system together that's cable, or it could be wireless, but it's Ethernet based, I would always say there are two types of product. There's managed and there's unmanaged. An unmanaged product does its job, but you cannot configure it in any way. And by not being able to configure it in any way, that means that it has, in electronic terms or in communication terms, no security. So first and foremost, to any user of a system, and I would say, regardless of their budget, look at using managed products to build that system. Because if you don't go managed, you're exposing yourself to attack. And of course, like a burglar at a house, you look for the point of least resistance when anybody is going to attack your network. That is true of the servers as well, sitting in the network. People will try and get into the network first. Once they're in the network, then they may do a number of things. They will look to potentially attack the network, attack the servers, get to the servers, start sending information out to your messaging systems, just putting crazy messages, but because they've got hold of your servers, so they're at the core of your network and controlling it. But they've come into the network somewhere. So again, you have to secure all the points of the network, hence the management side. Then you have to secure the servers as well. And as we were explaining earlier, if you can shut things down, you only want up and running what you need. So that's important. Of course, you've got to be monitoring that system as well. Now, that doesn't mean that you need physical bodies there doing that monitoring. That could be completely electronic software-based monitoring within the system. I think that's the important. That probably, I'm going to hope that answers the question to a point. One of the other areas that certainly I look at and that becomes interesting is when we look at this from an end user side, and you talk security and surveillance. And of course, surveillance being a large part, or relatively big part within ITS. But when you look at surveillance or any security system, and that security system is IP, you actually have two hits at it. And let me explain myself there. You are deploying an IP-based system which is open to attack to provide the security on a facility which will keep people out of that facility to prevent attack on other systems. So actually, if we were to look at a campus, and you mentioned military there, and we provide rings of steel on data centers and all various different end user types and applications. We provide a system, and we provide the communications within that system to secure a facility. If that facility is not secure, then the end user potentially looks at the issue as, oh, my site is open to attack, my data network may be taken down. Access control, let's say, within a financial establishment. their issue is that their data network gets taken down, and then they can't do their day-to-day job. You know, they're maybe being held to ransom. Their servers have been hit. They're not actually looking at their physical security system, whereas we are looking at the physical security and making sure that that system doesn't get attacked. So it becomes a sort of two-level cyber security issue. So if a customer is actually using a system to protect a site, they've got two issues going on. They've got the cyber security within the security system. They then need to have the positive effect of the security system securing the location to keep out a potential attack on the data networks and even, let's say, the process or control networks that are operational within that location. So it's a sort of double-edged sword, if you would. Apologies, Hamlin, because that was maybe quite a complex answer. So apologies.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, that's very, very clear. I mean, so there's like the internal security and also, you know, defense against external, right? So,
exactly.
And yeah, exactly. And so, yeah, which brings me to a second question. I think one of the most important point is complexity by simplicity, because obviously cybersecurity can be very complex, not only from technical part, but also in the range of potential attacks or compromises that could actually happen to a certain system, right? And
Yes.
so, you know, so once you've built like a very secure system, be it internally and externally, like the client, the end user will still need to monitor, like how exactly were there any breaches, or if there is any potential breaches, you know, how much was fended off, and if there had been, unfortunately, to be a breach, you know, what had been, you know, affected. And so you still need to actually make it very clear and, you know, relatively simple layman terms for the end user to know, right? And so during this period, you know, does ComNet, you know, support your clients in explaining the details of that to them, you know, that, you know, like is there like some sort of like a maintenance service or like a, you know, a monitoring service that you can actually provide to your clients?
Yeah,
Yeah.
the physical monitoring
Mm-hmm.
of it is something that we don't do, but what we do get heavily involved with is in supporting our customer. So, or I should say, our customer's customer. So all the way through, it's critically important for us that if somebody is using our systems, they understand how to use those systems. So as we were talking in our software management, you know, alerts are coming in. What do those alerts mean? So again, you look at the operator of a system, someone sitting in front of a terminal on a daily basis, managing a system, and information's coming in. If they don't understand what that information means, again, the system is compromised. So yeah, we take time where required and where requested to make sure that people understand what the information is providing to them, and then at the same time how they can use the system to respond to whatever those alerts are. And alerts, you know, how you respond to a system. We as individuals can get alerts by email, we could get them by SMS text. Even that setting up on a system can be complex. So there we make life very easy. But it's, of course, who you're sending alerts to and the type of alert. So again, facilities within the system is that you can filter issues in whichever way you wish. So you may have a certain, let's say, issue that comes in. And let's talk about a high security establishment. Some issue comes in, an alert. Now, based on the alert, it may even be based on the geographical location or the building that that alert comes from. You may want to send that to different people. If it refers to security, you might want to send it to the security person. If it's a data issue, maybe more the IT data people on site who look after the computers, etc. But if you are providing that out to a third party who's monitoring, it may be that immediately you need to send a person to that location, and they're coming to the location to solve a problem. That's great. We've got our proactive maintenance running. But what we may also need is that person at that location needs to be chaperoned. So again, how you respond to an alert, because it may be that you need to meet that person at a gate and escort them through a site. So how you respond to alerts, the different alerts will have different responses. Different alerts need to go to different people. So it's really a case of setting everything up so as you respond quickly, efficiently, and functionally to alerts. And again, yeah, that we will get involved with that to whichever level is required to assist in making sure that everything is right.
Yeah, I think you're a very good point that, eventually the end user has to know very clearly, how to operate the system and how to, read whatever messages and prompts and system messages that's given to them during the course of the life cycle of the system. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I look at that like myself, and probably like and again, I'll apologize to any IT experts on the call. There are times when I'm working through my day and some of my internal work systems and some error message or something will show up. I have no idea what that error message means. And I have to go, as probably most of us do, I then have to call someone and go, what does this mean? What do I have to do? And again, that just shows, the message. Can the message be provided in a simpler fashion? Is it complex because it's the world of any engineering? Let's be honest, we all live behind acronyms in whichever engineering discipline we come from. So can we make the messaging simpler? At the same time as making it simpler, that's great. But again, the recipient of that information has to know what to do. So they have to be qualified. The operator of a system, be that electronic or physical, has to be, my term from before, fit for purpose. They need to be able to do the job that they're being asked to do. And again, if they can't do that job, and we're back again to an end user's operational requirements, we've got a failure in the system. We've got a cybersecurity issue, because a failure at any point within a network is a cybersecurity issue. And that, I think, is maybe sometimes where end users will look at an area and go, that's okay, I can take some cost out here. I can start cutting a corner, or I can maybe shave this bit off. But hopefully, if we start to relate things back to cybersecurity on value, it's like, look, you can not do this, but if you don't do it effectively, what is the cost of failure? Because that's what we're looking at.
Okay. Yeah, so I mean, a system is actually useful if you really know how to use it, right? So I think the fit for purpose and also the complexity by simplicity is actually very important. So actually I think it's about time for today. So actually that's a lot of information presented today, and so I'm sure after our members have digested it, they would actually have
Sure.
some questions for you. And so it will be very good, if you could actually send me your contacts, and I'll forward it to our members. And
I will
so,
I will
yeah.
get that done. Ray will have that as well. But yes, and Hamlin, I offer myself out, guys. I'm here. Any questions? Anything? Don't ask me about Scottish football or Scottish rugby. I'll keep quiet on those subjects. But anything else, I'll happily answer.
Yeah, no problem. Okay,
Okay.
so there you go. This is the end of today's seminar. And so the next of the series will be in September, featuring access communications and also on cybersecurity. So the topic would be essential and efficient cybersecurity management for intelligent traffic surveillance systems. So security is actually a very big topic nowadays, right? Okay. So so everyone, please stay tuned to our emails and communications later on for further details of the event. In the meantime, thank you, Ian, and thank you all again, and see you all next time. So have a
My
good day and have a good morning to you.
My pleasure, and thank you.
All right.
Yeah.
So thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Good. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.